A long time ago, on a gloomy, wet Cleveland spring night, two men stand alone amidst the late-night drizzle. Their voices echo across the vacant station parking lot as they debate the merits of the great American radio show that have been missing for far too long. On that night, an idea was born. That idea became the FDH Lounge. Welcome to the FDH Lounge.
Welcome to mini episode number 15 of the FDH Lounge and our fourth adaptation of the FantasyDraftHelp.com Insider in this format after 7 seasons on our previous platform. This is FDH Managing Partner Rick Morris here with our NFL Week 4 version of the Insider as we deliver our lineup advice for this slate of action. First of all, since we have different platforms where this is available, we urge you to view this on our fantasy blog at FantasyDraftHelp.blogspot.com because of the links we posted that precede this webcast. In particular, we have links to our Fantasy Football Draftology 2011 guide, Google News and CBSSports.com for injury news, and the NFL.com Week 4 homepage for scores and updates. Additionally, we will update there as needed with any big news during the weekend. Look on the blog for Fantasy Newsletter Volume 4, Issue 38, posted on October 1st, to find the weekly fantasy newsletter with the accompanying links where this video is embedded. By the way, also on the blog is the newly posted link to Fantasy Hockey Draftology 2011, your fantasy and non-fantasy guide to the upcoming NHL season. We've got some additional preface notes that we'll be delivering every week as well. First of all, our advice is probably a bit different than some in the industry. We're not the place to go regarding the question of whether or not to play a healthy Aaron Rodgers this week. Aside from reiterating our list of gimmies, we don't discuss them beyond that. We're also not part of the movement that overstates the importance of week-to-week matchups. Sadly, if you bungled your draft or auction, there's not much except the stroke of great luck on the waiver wire that can salvage your season. Now, in shallower leagues where you've been able to pick up the likes of Cam Newton off the wire thus far, you're doing well. But you hardly need a fantasy football industry source to tell you to do that. We play the percentages on giving our advice, which is all that anyone can do, even those in the industry who purport to own a crystal ball. You'll always get intellectual honesty from us. Before we get to our list of constants for the season, let's review who's already been scratched from the list: Peyton Manning and Jamal Charles. Kenny Britt wasn't an every-week play for us yet, but he was right on the verge when he went down for the season. If Manning comes back at any point, we'll reinstate him to the every-week list, but that increasingly looks like an extreme long shot. We also now have our first additions to the list for the 2011 season, the pitcher and catcher combo of Cam Newton and Steve Smith in Carolina. While the numbers they put up in the first 2 weeks are unsustainable over the course of the year, the baseline that they would be coming down from is astronomical. Now here's our list of constants we have had since the beginning of the season. When healthy, you don't jerk with these guys. You leave them in your lineup regardless of scary matchups. At quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Michael Vick, Tony Romo, and Matt Schaub. At running back, Chris Johnson, Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, Ray Rice, Mo Jones-Drew, Arian Foster, Rashard Mendenhall, Michael Turner, Darren McFadden, Matt Forte, Peyton Hillis, Ahmad Bradshaw, Frank Gore, D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart, LeGarrette Blount, and Steven Jackson. At wide receiver, Andre Johnson, Roddy White, Calvin Johnson, Greg Jennings, Hakeem Nicks, Reggie Wayne, Mike Wallace, Larry Fitzgerald, Miles Austin, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Williams, Tampa Bay, Dwayne Bowe, Marcus Colston, Jeremy Maclin, Vincent Jackson, Des Bryant, and Brandon Marshall. Colston is hurt now, but he is an every-week play when healthy. At tight end, Antonio Gates, Dallas Clark, Jason Witten, Vernon Davis, and Jermichael Finley. Now, our advice is relative, and there are exceptions to every rule. As a general guide to our approach, we factor in a PPR assumption since so many leagues have at least some component of that in their scoring system these days. Additionally, our advice is able to be applied most precisely to a 12-team league in terms of the proportions of value. As such, based on the players who are our perennial recommendations for the season, there are 8 QBs, 17 running backs, 18 wide receivers, and 5 tight ends who are always worth playing if healthy. Those baseline numbers provide a useful guide into the strength of various positions from week to week. In a 12-team league, that means in an ideal week we can recommend at least 4 additional QBs, 7 additional tight ends, and approximately a dozen running backs and wide receivers, assuming that your league has a flex position. Okay, with our lengthy but necessary setup out of the way, let's get into this week's best lineup plays. At quarterback, as has been the case during the season, depth is in abundance, as we can recommend an additional 12 passers: Ryan Fitzpatrick, Matt Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger, Rex Grossman, Sam Bradford, Eli Manning, Kevin Kolb, Matt Ryan, Kyle Orton, Jason Campbell, Mark Sanchez, and Josh Freeman. At running back, the depth is so-so, as we would be good with 10 players: Fred Jackson, Javid Best, Felix Jones, Darren Sproles, Dexter McCluster, Tim Hightower, Marshawn Lynch, Ryan Matthews, Joseph Adai, and James Starks. At wide receiver, though, it's certainly on the thin side, with a mere additional 5 folks to recommend: Devery Henderson, Wes Welker, Stevie Johnson, A.J. Green, and Nate Washington. Tight end is not exceptional either, with only 4 additional recommendations: Rob Gronkowski, Greg Olson, Tony Gonzalez, and Dustin Keller. We like to single out some players as stronger options each week, so here's our top 5 in no particular order: Matt Stafford, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Felix Jones, and the QBs dueling in Arizona, Eli Manning and Kevin Kolb. Additionally, each week we take a look at NFL teams we consider to be all in or all out. All in constitutes recommendations at the full range of QB, RB1, WR1, WR2, and tight end. All out teams have only their perennial recommendations to go on every week, with no marginal players suggested. Our sole all-in recommendation, by dint of suggesting Felix Jones to you, is Dallas. They constituted our only previous all-in play back in Week 2. There are 7 all-out plays this week, only about half of last week: Chicago, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Minnesota, San Francisco, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. Now, to keep things in their proper perspective, let's look at the last one. For Philly, Brent Selleck is the only question, so for them to be all out, it simply means that you bench the only player among the 5 aforementioned spots that comes into play every week. So there's your recommendations for NFL Week 4. We welcome any questions, and we may answer them here from week to week. Become a friend of FantasyDraftHelp.com on Facebook, or hit us up on Twitter, where our identity is the FDH Lounge with no spaces and the T, F, D, H, and L capitalized. Before we sign off, our 21st Century Media Alliance Associate Platinum Smalls of DOU Productions informs us that an announcement was made this week about the joining of Adrian Peterson with Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher for a campaign dedicated to fighting child sex trafficking. Donations can bring you prizes as well as the satisfaction of doing a tremendous amount of good. Visit crowdrise.com/football for more information. Thanks for checking us out. Go break off a little value on your opponent this week, and be sure to sample our other Nothing is Off Topic mini episodes from the FDH Lounge.